All right, in this explainer, we're going to dig into a really provocative idea from our source material. And that's the idea that the descendants of Cain, a lineage marked right from the very beginning, didn't just survive the Great Flood, they actually went on to seize immense worldly power. So let's get into it.
So, right off the bat, here's the central mystery we have to tackle. If the flood was meant to be this great reset for the entire world, how in the world did a lineage described as cursed even manage to make it through? The answer to that question really unlocks this entire narrative.
Well, according to the source we're looking at, the key isn't found with Noah's sons themselves, but with who one of them chose to marry. It all kicks off with a forbidden union, one that would send ripples all the way through history.
And here is the big connection our source makes. Noah's son, Ham, married a woman by the name of Egyptus. Now, she's described as belonging to what the text calls the forbidden race of Cain. So this marriage, this is presented as the single thread that allowed this specific bloodline to pass through the flood.
You know, the name itself is a massive clue. Our source points out that the name Egyptus literally translates to forbidden. I mean, it's not just a name, it's a label. It's signaling right from the start that this whole union was seen as completely prohibited.
And wow, did this choice have huge consequences. See, Ham, as Noah's son, held what the source calls the priesthood, a kind of spiritual authority. But because of his marriage, that authority stopped dead with him. It could not be passed on to his kids, basically cutting off his entire lineage from this divine privilege.
But the consequences don't stop there, not even close. After the flood, a family incident, an indiscretion really, leads Noah to declare a formal curse. And this curse is what solidifies the fate of this entire branch of the family tree.
So the incident all goes down in Noah's tent. After drinking some wine from his new vineyard, Noah falls asleep and becomes uncovered. His son Ham finds him, and instead of helping, he actually mocks him. But his brothers Shem and Japheth, they do the opposite. They walk in backwards and respectfully cover their father, showing a really clear contrast in their character.
So when Noah woke up and realized what Ham had done, he issued this incredibly powerful curse. He declared that Ham's son, Canaan, would be a servant of servants. Now, according to the source, this meant his descendants would be barred from the highest levels of spiritual leadership and presidency that other lineages would hold.
And the curse didn't stop there. Noah also prophesied a physical mark, saying, "A veil of darkness shall cover him, that he shall be known among all men." This was meant to be a visible, undeniable sign identifying this lineage for everyone to see.
And the source makes it really clear that this curse wasn't just for Canaan. Nope, it extended to other descendants too. The text specifically calls out Pharaoh, who was Ham's grandson, as also being ineligible for the priesthood. This just reinforces that it was a lasting, lineage-wide consequence.
Okay, this is where the central figure of our story really steps onto the stage, Nimrod. He's the one who takes this lineage, a people who are barred from spiritual authority, and channels all of their ambition into seizing worldly, political power instead.
So, Nimrod, another one of Ham's grandsons, becomes the leader of this new movement. They basically reject the simple pastoral life that Noah had established. What they want is to build cities and recreate the kind of concentrated, centralized power that existed before the flood.
Now check this out. This is a fascinating little detail. Most of us know the phrase from the King James Bible, Nimrod was a mighty hunter before the Lord, which, sounds pretty good, right? Like he had divine approval. But our source highlights a different translation, which says he was a mighty hunter in the land.
So why does that tiny little change in wording matter so much? Well, according to the source, it flips the entire meaning on its head. In the land suggests worldly power totally separate from God. It reframes Nimrod not as a divinely approved leader, but as a rebel, a powerful figure acting against the divine will.
And this rebellious spirit, it leads directly to Nimrod's most famous project, the city and the Tower of Babel. And the source is crystal clear. This was not some achievement to be celebrated. It was an act of open defiance.
I mean, their own words lay their motivation bare. They say they want to build a city and a tower to make us a name, and just as important, to keep themselves from being scattered abroad, which was the very thing they were commanded to do.
So, the rebellion at Babel was really a three-pronged problem. First, they were concentrating their population directly opposing the command to spread out and fill the earth. Second, their leader was Nimrod, from the very lineage that was barred from righteous leadership. And third, the tower itself was basically a monument to their lack of faith, an attempt to save themselves from a future flood, totally ignoring God's covenant that one would never happen again.
And this whole situation sets up a really powerful contrast. On one side, you have the simple, faithful life, represented by the tents of Shem. And then on the other, you have Babel, a centralized city built on ambition, rebellion, and the kind of corruption that springs from the wrong kind of leadership.
Which leaves us with a final, thought-provoking question. What does this ancient story, when you look at it through this particular lens, really suggest about that inherent conflict we still see today? That tension between a simpler, faith-based way of life and the constant drive to build centralized worldly power? It's a question that feels just as relevant now as it was back then.